Just a quick run now to settle the shocks so I can measure the ride heights, and immediately I can tell you that there is a massive difference in the way this car is feeling. Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack and this is the FrankEnlise. Today is a really exciting day. I don't know if you can tell how happy I am, but it's finally been time to spend some money on this car. I think I've been sort of criticised a little bit in the past because I'm doing everything sort of to the penny on the FrankEnlise, but the truth is that where it matters, I am willing to spend money. One of the big issues I've always had since I got the FrankEnlise is that it came with gas gold shocks. I'm not criticising the shocks because I don't think that's the problem. The problem is the previous owner came from, when he bought the car, it had a super harsh setup. So when he ordered the gas golds, gas are really helpful and they'll do the shocks to your spec. And he got them to do them with the softest spring possible. As a result, the FrankEnlise can ride incredibly well at low speeds, but if you push on, it starts to move around a lot. So I asked a lot of people and I did a lot of research, and it seems to me that the best possible compromise setup for the road is with the Bilstein S2 setup. So the Bilstein's designed for the S2. And Lotus and Elise parts do a setup just for that. I've ordered a few bits from them and they've been really helpful. Had a good chat with I think it's Geary and Ian there. And they have sent me a few bits. So first of all, I love this packaging. It's odd, isn't it? It's like good quality plastic bubble packing. It just makes a difference. It's quite thick. But anyway, this is, thank you all to those who pointed out that Elise Parts provided like a strengthening bracket for the slave cylinder, because I didn't know that. So I'm going to put that on and it will definitely now keep everything sorted there. So that's brilliant. And also, here is the kit that I have ordered. These are more or less, I think, S2 spec, but Elise Parts did say that they sort of worked with Bilstein and there are some sort of minor adjustments there. But we have the shocks there, and also, again, here are some more bits. Have a quick look at this, all very well packaged. So these are brilliant. So they come with brand new bolts as well, which is absolutely great. So don't have to worry about that. And here are the brackets. So it all looks like, I think that's powder coated. So these, I believe, are the front brackets. And they have two different sets of holes to adjust ride heights. The ride heights are also adjustable very slightly on the shock collar, but it's a pain to do and I've been told should be unnecessary. And these are the rear brackets, which again are reversible. Let me see if I can open it up and show you. But these are reversible to adjust ride height. So depending on whether you mount it like this or like this, obviously you are changing the heights. So this is all stuff which I'm going to have to. And again, they come with brand new bolts, which is absolutely great. And yeah, so today's main challenge is going to be, I don't know if I can get it right first time round, is to try and work out how to mount it all to get the right ride heights. It's just going to have to be mounted, then measured, and if it's wrong, it's going to have to be taken off and remounted. In the last video, many of you pointed out I should be changing the rear toe links because they do tend to fail and they're original on this car. Plus, obviously, I've been doing a bit of hammering on that on one side of the car as well, which wouldn't have helped them. So I was going to get some new ones, but Junk's got in touch, Phil, who's helped me so much with this car. Thanks, buddy. And he had some Lotus Motorsports ones, and I do need some different end ball joints, which I've ordered. They did come, but they're in the wrong pitch, so I'm just waiting for the replacements to come. But these will also be changed as part of this refit. So let's get started. Now, one of the most important things for me is after this, I know that the new shocks are going to be longer, I think, than these gas ones. I think this is a lowered stance. So it's going to change all the geometry. So before you say anything, I have already agreed with Steve Guglielmi of Guglielmi Motorsport. I think it's actually from Malta rather than Italian. But anyway, I had a good chat with Steve and he's going to help me out. So once I have fitted everything and got the ride heights the way they should be, in theory, then I'm going to take the car to him and he's going to do a final setup. And I think that would be great because he can just tell me more generally as well what he thinks of it, how it drives, if there's anything else that I need to look at. So that's just fantastic. So the first thing to do, which I have already done, is to measure the current ride heights because I'm just interested in seeing what the difference will be. Those are measured at the ends of the main chassis beams. So just here, which measures about 110 millimeters. And then at the end of the chassis beam there, which is basically the jacking points really, just before the under tray begins, and that's about 115. And I've measured on either side, and I think it was set up to be about 110 mil around. You know, there's maybe 5 mil difference depending on how you measure. But because I'm having to use this to measure, it's not super precise anyway, but it gives me a good enough idea. So that little clack is the first locking height, but I'm going to go higher. There we go. Now that is maximum height. And here they are. And it looks like it should be relatively straightforward. So they're 17 mil bolts, front and bottom. Where can I? Yeah, there we go. So taking them off, let's try, but should be easy. Now there are two little spacers on each side, so make sure that you take them out and note which way in they went. Bottom bolt is a bit crusty, so quite happy that I'm going to be changing all those. Now, although it's not too bad in here in terms of corrosion, I think at another stage, maybe over the summer, I will come in here and just paint it all because it could definitely do with smartening up a little bit. Okay, so it's out. So far I'm utterly shocked by how easy that is, but I'm sure there will be more complications as we go. So now this shock here, this Gaz shock, by the way, if anyone wants these, Gaz will rebuild them, I think, for £35 each, and I'm happy to sell them on for £100 or something, so you could get some new shocks for about £220, essentially, because they will be rebuilt. Yeah, because I don't know what I'm going to do with them really, but they do work, so yeah, get in touch with me if you're interested in taking these off my hands. Okay, next to remove the top mounting bracket, at the bottom it stays the same. At the top, these are the ones supplied by Elise parts, and you can see they have two sets of holes, so you can adjust the height accordingly. Probably I will put it on the lower ride height settings of these and then see what comes out of it. 13 mils on here, so you can do the whole refresh, I think at the back as well, with 13 mil sockets and spanners. It looks like these mounting brackets are handed, so if you can see from the top, they're not symmetrical, they're not the same from one side to the other. And the one that I've just taken off, there we go, points slightly to the right, so this is the correct one. As mentioned, the Elise parts mount has two different mounting holes, so you can adjust ride height. And at the front it was roughly 110, and I'm aiming for about 130, wouldn't mind 120 to be quite honest, so very slightly lower than standard. Now I am assuming that the spring rate on these new dampers is going to be a fair bit stronger than on the old ones. First of all, because from the S1s anyway, these upgraded ones have a much sort of harder spring rate, the S2 ones. And the guy, I can't remember his name now, but the chap I bought this from, he asked Gaz to put on a very soft spring rate, so I'm assuming this is stronger. So I am, after all, going to try and, as the first one, mount it so that the shock, to get the lowest possible ride height at the front. We'll see what happens. It is a bit annoying because if it's not right, then it all has to be done again, but it is quite quick, so that's a positive. So the other advantage of these Bilsteins is that whereas these cheaper Gaz Golds sort of have to be mounted upside down for clearance, I think, for some reason. Oh yeah, because it's too fat at the bottom here. So that means you get a lot more unsprung weight because you get this whole bit of the shock. Whereas with the Bilsteins and many other of the more expensive ones, including, actually, to be fair to Gaz, their more expensive range, I think are mounted the right way up. Both fronts now done, and it's time to do the back ones. And again, I think it's 17s all round, even on the mounts, that have to be changed over. You can see the mount here, depending on whether you mount it upside down or upright, will affect the clearance, so, or the ride height rather. One thing is, the toe links that I've got on, I can't see how they will fit in the same way as the replacements, so I need to do something, and they're staying for the moment until I can figure out how to fit them. I don't think I have the right fittings for those. And it's out, and again, really, really easy. I have to commend Lotus, and it's good that it's easy because I might have to do this all over again if the right heights are completely wrong. So 17mm nuts at the back, bigger than the front ones. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because there's more weight on the back, and they sort of added a bit of strength. So this is always going to be a bit of a lottery, really, and a bit of a guessing game. I also just spoke to Ian, who's been really helpful at Elise Parts, and he said at the front usually go for the highest ride height on both sides, and at the front I've gone for lower. So, but at the back I'm going to go for higher, and I hope if one of them needs to be adjusted, then the back, because that would be so much easier. That would be so much easier to change. It is easier to redo the back. Now all the bolts, front and back, and for the dearest bits, are supplied in different bags, which makes it really simple to work out what goes where. You also have the older bolts, really, but in any case, 2 of these. And then, as I mentioned, I hope this pays off, so this is going to be for the higher ride height. I have to say, it is absolutely lovely putting new components. It's always the same on any car, but also shocks, nice new shocks and nice new bolts, all that stuff. One of the most satisfying, lovely things about doing any work on a car, I think. So I hope I won't regret saying this, but this is one of those jobs. It's a nice job because it hasn't been particularly complicated. There was nothing seized. There's nothing that's really hard to get to. And the end result with the new stuff on it just is nice, satisfying. Also, there's no shims at the back either within from the shock body, so that also makes it easier to do. Okay, are we ready? Time to lower and then measure. So what I've got to do really is take it for a spin and measure, but I'm going to do some quick measurements while I just lower it here, because if it is already too low even before settling, I'll know that I've got to change one of those round. But let's see what it does. So let's drop it down. Alrighty. Well, it is definitely taller than it was. Let's see by how much. So at the front, I'd say it's probably 125. Of course, I haven't taken it for a run yet. That will lower it. But that doesn't seem wildly off, so that's good. When it's running at the back. So I'd like it to have a little bit of rake, ideally, so hopefully the back is a little bit higher. Should be. And yeah, the back is basically 135. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to take it for a run, come back, measure again.
Oh my God! So far I am simply flabbergasted at the difference. This is exactly what I wanted. It's still really firm, but it's just so much better. It's so hard to explain. It's not softer. It doesn't feel like the suspension is moving anymore, but it's so much more polished. It just feels amazing. I can't wait to drive this once it's sorted and the geo is done. What a difference. Wow. If you've got a road going Elise, get this package. I mean, I still have to drive it quickly and all that kind of stuff, but you can feel it immediately. It's like when I had, for a long time, I only had motorbikes. I didn't have cars. And I had a load of Öhlins shocks on those. Well, I always used Öhlins shocks because on motorbikes, but on the road as well, they are extremely good. But the difference was always like, you can tell immediately, just the feel, the way the suspension is moving, how controlled it is. Oh, it is amazing.
So at slower speeds, it is absolutely transformed. It's just amazing. But I want to measure the ride heights now, see if I got away with it. I think looking at it, maybe I have, without having to refit one end or the other. And then I'd have to take it to Steve to get it properly set up. But of course I haven't driven it properly, but I would be amazed if it isn't also transformed when it's going quickly. It feels so good. It's just that kind of suspension movement. I call it, you know, it's like money. You could feel it on the motorbike, so you put in some Öhlins shocks and replace the standard stuff. It gave you that sort of oiled feeling, that control, but with suppleness, and that's what it feels like. So that is great. Right, let's see. So ride height at the back is pretty much dead on 130, maybe just over. At the front it's also pretty much 130, which is actually, well, that's what Elise Parts said to aim for, 130 all round, maybe a little bit lower at the front, and maybe it is a tiny bit lower down at the front. Not much though, a few mil. Hard to measure the way I'm doing it precisely, but I think I got away with that. So for a quick comparison with the old Gaz shocks, I would say that these, when backed off to about sort of 4 clicks from soft dust, something like that, they do give an excellent ride, especially on sort of broken up surfaces and at low speeds. But if you use them like that at higher speeds, it does start to move around a bit too much for my liking anyway. And then if you stiffen them up, they do stiffen up. I mean, the adjusters do make an immediate difference. But if you stiffen them up to the point where it starts to control the body, it just becomes too harsh for me and the car starts to skip. I strongly suspect it's not the shock itself, because I don't know, these are twin tube design, which is obviously inferior to monotube, which Gaz also do make. But I believe the Bilsteins are monotube, but they are non-adjustable. These do offer a lot of value, and I think probably rebuilt with some better sort of weight springs on them, they would still be really, really good. But I am amazingly chuffed with those. It's not often that when you work on a car, everything just seems to go pretty well and it just seems to work. And today is one of those days. It's one of those perfect days which happen really rarely, because usually when you try and do a job on a car, everything goes wrong, you don't have the right tool, something's seized, you work out you don't know how to do some part of it or whatever. This job has just been a pleasure. Obviously also aided by the fact that I have this amazing garage now, which makes my life so much easier, and the quick lifts. My God, everything's so much easier than it used to be when I was on a little, you know, when I used to work outside the garage really, on a little drive, on an incline, jack up each corner, try and get jacks underneath. What a nightmare. And it's just been brilliant. It's all worked, it's been easy, it's been a pleasure doing it. And to top it all off, my first little drive, which has just been obviously just pootling around just to settle it, that is incredibly promising so far. It just, you can feel they are quality shocks. So I'm over the moon with the choice that I've made. I just think this is gonna be great. It's gonna ride a little bit higher, but looks never the thing that I've really prioritized on this. It's never gonna be something that's gonna look, you know, super hardcore. I don't mind the slightly higher ride height. And it looks like it's about 130 at the back and just maybe a couple of mil less at the front, which is probably pretty perfect. So keep an eye out, because I am taking it, I think, next week now. I'll see what my availability, what his availability is like actually. Take it to Steve so we can get it set up, then take it for a drive, and also I'll get him to just say what he thinks of it and other bits that I may need to do. I had a quick look at the bushings while I was doing all this. They seem okay, but I don't know if they need to be looked at some point. But so far, over the moon, loving the FrankEnlise even more. I think I'm going to start calling it Frankie because it's just easier, really. FrankEnlise is so ungainly. So yeah, well up for Frankie!